Red Hulk, Thunderbolt Ross Origins. Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Terry and this is Marvelous Videos. The Red Hulk usually goes by General Thaddeus E. Thunderbolt Ross. He was a part of the US Air Force and the head of the Gamma Bomb project, which ultimately led to the creation of the Hulk. Ross was obsessed with finding the Hulk and pursued him with a burning passion. Eventually, he realized that the Hulk is none other than his daughter Betty's fiancé, Bruce Banner. General Ross first appeared in the first volume of The Incredible Hulk in 1962, while Red Hulk showed up for the first time in the first issue of the Hulk comic, which was released in 2008. Let's get into his origins. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Now, let's begin.
A perfect one.
Red Hulk Origins. Before we get into Ross's transformation from human to Hulk, let's take a look at his life and how it led up to the moment he became the Red Hulk. Thaddeus Ross was born into a military family. His grandfather and his father were both members of the US military. He was highly impressed by their stories of valor and bravery, so he followed their path and joined the US military too. In the army, he met his captain's daughter, Karen Lee, who he went on to marry. Later, Ross was dispatched to the South Pacific to fight the enemy. This was where he earned the name Thunderbolt, for his capacity to strike like thunder. He also rose up to the rank of major during his service in the South Pacific, but started working a desk job in the military after his daughter Betty was born. During this time, Ross came across Howard Stark. After that, he was inducted into the Stark 7 with Bear, Nessa the Kitten, Jimmy Woo, and Dum Dum Dugan. Ross rejoined the military and was assigned to East Asia when the Stark 7 was eventually disbanded. In East Asia, he finally attained the rank of general. 12 years later, his wife Karen passed away from cancer, and he was, quite obviously, devastated by her passing. This led to him becoming obsessively concerned about his daughter's safety, sending her to boarding schools, as he felt she shouldn't be in and around the military. All of this only led to more distance between him and his daughter. As time passed, Ross joined Control, an organization established by the military based on research papers written by Dr. Reed Richards. The main focus of Control was to predict dangers to the world and thwart them before they started. I think this is where the Red Hulk started nurturing his paranoia, which would eventually translate into dislike and hate for Bruce Banner and the Hulk. Now we move on to the part where General Ross meets Bruce Banner, leading to the creation of the Hulk. Ross met Banner when he oversaw a nuclear weapons project under the US government, where they were using gamma radiation at Desert Base in New Mexico. Banner was the supervisor of the project, but Ross disliked him from the start because he wasn't athletic and not a masculine man, according to Ross. Just like it happened with Ross and his captain, Bruce caught Betty's eye. However, this time it wasn't welcome. It only led to Ross loathing Banner even more, as he thought less of Banner. He'd assumed that she would rather get married to a military man, or in Ross's eyes, a real man. During the Gamma Ray project, Banner rescued a civilian, Rick Jones, who would go on to become A-Bomb during a Gamma Bomb test. This mishap was what led to Bruce Banner turning into the Hulk. However, it wasn't a mishap, but rather a targeted attack on Banner by Igor Starsky, a Russian spy. He'd continued the countdown in an effort to kill Banner, making Jones a casualty. Even though Banner did a good job of concealing his dual persona, Ross eventually discovered that the two are the same and focused all his efforts and energies on finding the Hulk. Ross relished his pursuit of Banner as it freed him up from desk work. He used the military to help him follow the Hulk, because the monster could wreak havoc everywhere it went. Ross was unfortunately never able to capture the Hulk. Infuriated by this, Thaddeus only became more determined and fixated on getting his hands on the guy he perceived as being weak, which is kind of silly considering the fact that the Hulk is literally the most jacked, massive, manliest of men. Ross continued to dislike Banner, but when Banner stopped supervillains like the Leader and the Abomination, he eventually grew to respect him a little. Over time, Ross was appointed leader of the Hulkbusters, a team the government had formed to apprehend the Hulk and research the gamma radiation in his body. Ross ultimately resorted to drastic means to get Banner, as he continued to elude the authorities despite the efforts of the Hulkbusters. Ross persisted in pursuing Bruce even after the Hulkbusters failed, showing just how obsessed he was with the Hulk and his destruction. This is where we jump into the comics and find out exactly how Ross turned into the Red Hulk. We first see the Red Hulk before we get to know about his origin. He's shown fighting a bunch of irradiated heroes who are out for his blood. He seems to be winning while the leader and MODOK are watching on a screen. This is when Red She-Hulk shows up. She's a lot stronger than Red Hulk and she knows his weakness. Unlike Green Hulk, Red Hulk builds up his rage like a reactor without a cooling system until his body overheats and he can't fight anymore. So she offers to take his excess energy, in other words, kill him. While she's doing that, he starts transforming back into Ross. That's the moment when she stops trying to kill him. In fact, she's unable to. It turns out that Red She-Hulk is Betty, Ross's daughter, so she can't kill him. With that, we go into a flashback and discover how Ross became the Red Hulk. Issue 23 of the Hulk explores who the Red Hulk is and how Ross became him. The comic explores the first time Ross saw the Hulk and his hatred for the monster. However, he also saw the beast as a weapon of mass destruction and decided to follow through on a plan in that very direction. Because the government financed him, Thaddeus was appointed as the Pentagon's go-to expert on how to beat the Hulk. That obsession led to his alliance with MODOK. He even went so far as to commit treason by assisting MODOK in releasing the Abomination. Then we see how badly this pans out for him. He commits treason and frees the Abomination to kill the Hulk. However, the plan falls through as the Hulk defeats the Abomination. Betty found out about Ross's treason, which led her to cutting off all ties with him. Thaddeus attempted suicide out of his feelings of regret and humiliation, but he changed his mind, deciding that suicide was a coward's way out. Ultimately, his treason comes to bite him in the ass as the Abomination apparently kills his daughter Betty. Instead of treating it like a lesson, Ross only delves deeper into his rage and self-pity, drowning his sorrow in a bottle of Jack. This is when the leader and MODOK reach out to Ross. They try to recruit him and even use Betty as bait. The promise of being able to defeat the Hulk and see his daughter led to Ross accepting their proposal and joining forces with the leader and MODOK. We see that they use a satellite to siphon the gamma radiation from the Hulk, knocking him out. They collect the radiation in another location, Death Valley. This is where we find out that the leader had Betty in his possession all along and had revived her. What Ross didn't know, however, was that he had transformed Betty into Red She-Hulk. They used the radiation gathered from the Hulk to create another Hulk, the Red Hulk. As a fun side note, when Ross found out that the leader had turned Betty into the Red She-Hulk, he drained the leader of his gamma-fueled powers and left him as a normal human being, trapped in the torturous life of the ordinary. What makes Red Hulk so deadly? To understand what makes the Red Hulk so dangerous, it's imperative to understand Ross and his strengths. The reason for this is that Red Hulk retains a lot of the characteristics of Ross after he changes. Thaddeus Ross is quite ordinary in his human form, much like Bruce Banner. He is decently strong, fast and agile for a typical person, most likely as a consequence of regular training and exercise. He has extensive military experience from his time in the army and is a brilliant tactician and thinker. He is also an expert pilot, having flown both military and civilian aircraft, is competent with a variety of weapons, and knows how to use multiple weapons as one would expect from a military man. He has a very stern appearance and an extremely caustic personality, which remains after he changes into Red Hulk. He often views the Hulk as a threat and will do whatever it takes to get rid of him. Ross was the subject of Intelligentsia's experiment at his request, and as a result, he acquired the ability to transform into the Red Hulk, which gave him very extraordinary degrees of physical strength, durability, and healing powers. Unlike Banner, Ross doesn't transform into Red Hulk when he gets angry. Instead, he must consciously choose to do so. This is one of the main distinctions between the two Hulks. Another difference is that Red Hulk won't revert to being Ross after being knocked out. Instead, he completely depends on his willpower to change from his human form to and from the Red Hulk. As the Red Hulk, Ross exhibits extraordinary strength. Although his strength is limited by his heat production and the absence of a similar strength-building mechanism as his green opponent, he can still lift more than 100 metric tons with astonishing ease and has a strength threshold far beyond what his human body had. In contrast, the Green Hulk can increase his strength by gamma generation in his cellular structure to even greater levels. However, he did clearly demonstrate the capacity to drain the energy of people, which he then used to amplify his already enormous power levels. His ability to hold his own against many Marvel powerhouses like Green Hulk, Thor, and Angria is by far the most stunning demonstration of his power. Another good example of this power is the fact that the Red Hulk can battle for days on end without tiring out, because because of his nearly limitless stamina. Additionally, with only his remaining energy and adrenaline, he can stay awake for several months. He can also regain lost stamina very rapidly. Thus, even after being impaled or gutted, he can still keep fighting. Because of his massive muscle mass, Red Hulk can endure great marine depths like those in the Marianas Trench without suffering any negative bodily consequences other than the requirement for air. Additionally, he can function in a scorching environment without any concern for exterior damage and can tolerate direct contact with molten lava. His physique is strong enough to withstand the harsh conditions of space itself, as seen by the time he jumped to the moon while pulling Thor behind him, and then returned to Earth while avoiding a deep collision that would have left a crater. However, the Red Hulk is vulnerable to sharp items, in contrast to the Hulk. Heroes like the Punisher and Wolverine have been able to pierce the Red Hulk's skin and injure him. However, this may be because Red Hulk is more frequently assaulted with stakes and swords than the Green Hulk, who frequently uses physical or energy strikes. The Red Hulk can still heal wounds that would typically render a person permanently disabled. Despite these slight changes, the Green Hulk would have recovered from the eye cut far more quickly than Red Hulk, which seems to indicate that while Red Hulk's healing abilities are formidable, they're not as strong as the original Hulk's. He also remains in a semi-permanent adult condition via regeneration. As a result, Red Hulk is unable to physically age like a typical person. He'd need to maintain his Red Hulk form continuously for more than a century before he began to resemble an elderly person. Ross still matures normally in his human form though. He's resistant to the majority of known illnesses, including the techno-organic virus, because of his body's ongoing ability to rebuild destroyed tissue. It's also conceivable that this regeneration has made him physically younger than his actual age, reversing the effects of aging in the process. It's possible that Red Hulk could live practically forever if he manages to avoid severe injuries or fatal wounds in battles. Red Hulk unleashes tremendous temperatures and heat from his body, which becomes hotter and hotter the angrier he gets, while the Green Hulk grows stronger with his rage. Red Hulk's body can't withstand the extreme heat he produces if his rage gets out of control, which is a serious disadvantage compared to Green Hulk. This heat is so extreme that it would likely cause every liquid to instantly evaporate, unlike other creatures who would typically sweat it out. This ends up roasting Red Hulk from the inside, but we don't really see him complaining. Although he does become extremely lightheaded, loses awareness of his body, and experiences excruciating agony if the situation is allowed to worsen. So maybe there is cause for complaint after all. Red Hulk also has the ability to simultaneously discharge all of the energy that has been accumulated inside of him, acting like fire, blasting back and burning adversaries. In moments of fury, he can also use this energy to set himself ablaze, appearing to breathe fire as he roars at his foes. However, when Red Hulk takes in too much energy, he overloads and becomes exhausted and lightheaded, the same way as when he overheats. The mind-blowing story arc of Red Hulk. The Red Hulk gets a lot of attention in the comic series Fall of Hulks. In the first issue of the comic, the Red Hulk arrives at a secret AIM facility and kills the security guards guarding the compound. He enters the building by slipping past a retinal scanner with the help of a security officer's eye. Once in, he pauses, realizing that he's not alone. As soon as his cover is revealed, A-Bomb gives up his cloaking power and admits that Bruce Banner instructed him to watch out for Red Hulk, as they still don't fully trust him anymore. The Red Hulk argues that as A-Bomb was also changed into his present form by MODOK, he can't be completely trusted either. And that's a completely fair assumption. Nevertheless, the two enter the AIM complex. They stumble upon a facility producing MODOK clones along the way. A-Bomb first believes the giant to be the actual MODOK. The Red Hulk dissuades him from attacking the dumb clone and explains that MODOK always requires new organs, which he takes from these clones. They quickly move on and locate the Doomsday Device. They're shocked to discover a Hulk-like robot and an odd gold disc there. When A-Bomb touches the disc, a hologram plays information about the Hulk robot. It claims that it was given power by the Cosmos Automation, a data loop that scours the cosmos in search of sentient planets where it can imprint its settings into the most cutting-edge machinery it can discover and make them capable of absorbing cosmic energy. It briefly contemplated imprinting on the Dragon Man android when it arrived on Earth, but it didn't fit its requirements. He did, however, learn that the Mad Thinker had made an android version of the Hulk. Later, the robot was activated and engaged the Eternals in combat. The Red Hulk, who has had enough of this, destroys the hologram projector after deciding that this Hulk robot must be taken out. Red Hulk reaches for the robot as A-Bomb picks up the disc, but the energy in his body causes it to start up. The Red Hulk is promptly attacked and dropped inside an A-Bomb. When the two are ready to fight back, the Hulk robot has already absorbed enough cosmic energy to effortlessly dispatch the two assailants. The robot then carries out its programming and leaves through a hole in the ceiling after taking out the Red Hulk and A-Bomb. On a nearby screen, MODOK and the leader suddenly appear and congratulate the Red Hulk for falling into their trap. They go on to explain that even though he is no longer their buddy, he's still helping them achieve their objectives. The two Gamma-spawned creatures then barely escape the base before it erupts, as it's set to self-destruct. They then head back to Bruce Banner's lair, which resembles a cave, to report the incident. When Banner learns about the Cosmic Hulk, he's extremely worried. The remainder of the disc is then viewed thanks to a gadget he makes. It turns out that he can also ask questions to the disc and it answers them. The remainder of the information discusses the Cosmic Automation's beginnings. They discover that it was made by Galactus at some point before he began employing heralds like the Silver Surfer. The devices it imprinted on were subsequently employed to set up a specific planet for Galactus's ultimate arrival. The Red Hulk thinks he knows someone who can help them to try to stop this robot, presenting a holographic picture of Lyra, the lady from the future, who is also the Hulk's daughter. The Red Hulk explains to Banner how Thundra traveled back in time to battle the Hulk in order to motivate her future soldiers, as well as to obtain the Hulk's cells in order to produce a potent child and save her race. Then, in Thundra's time, scientists succeed in getting her pregnant, giving birth to Lyra, the savage She-Hulk. Additionally, the Red Hulk tells Banner that Lyra is now in their era and has been recruited by the Wizard for his Frightful Four squad. However, Red Hulk fails to tell Banner that Thundra's time machine malfunctioned, preventing her from traveling back in time after her conflict with the Hulk. She was to be a part of the intelligence agency's strategy. After their confrontation, the Red Hulk sought Thundra out as an ally, as he felt his link with the intelligentsia was not going to continue. If Thundra helped him, the Red Hulk would help her to return to her time. This took place when the Red She-Hulk and Samson battled the Red Hulk. Thundra, a friend of the Fantastic Four, emphatically rejected Wizard, Claw and the Trapster's offer to help them capture Reed Richards. Red Hulk arrived and destroyed the enemy, saving her as they were about to defeat her. The Red Hulk took Thundra to his castle after the Cosmic Hulk captured Dr. Doom for the intelligentsia. At his castle, they used Doom's time machine to send Thundra back to her own time. If Thundra hadn't used the device to transport them into a desert illuminated by the sun, vampire keepers would have destroyed them. Finally, Thundra was able to travel back in time to give birth to Lyra, but not before giving the Red Hulk a peck to show her appreciation. The Red Hulk questioned whether she had samples of his cells. Meanwhile, A-Bomb spied on him covertly. A-Bomb unexpectedly attacks the Red Hulk after Thundra is sent back to her own time. A-Bomb has unexpectedly changed allegiance to MODOK and the leader, as the Red Hulk realizes. The conscious mind of Rick Jones struggles against training as the two battle it out, recalling the circumstances that led to his metamorphosis into A-Bomb. He remembers how Meek severely injured him towards the end of World War Hulk by thrusting a spear into his chest. He was carried off the field of combat by what he believed to be a SHIELD squad. He soon realized, however, that Gamma Base was really a cover for AIM and that he was actually a prisoner of MODOK and the leader after being taken there. He remembered hearing them say that he needed the DNA of the Abomination to survive. The Red Hulk encourages him to think about where that DNA originated by mentioning Emil Blonsky by name and telling him how he was the one who destroyed the Abomination. A-Bomb reverts back to normal after the experiment when he was initially altered, while the Red Hulk continues to batter him. At that point, his wife Marlo, whom MODOK had changed into the Harpy, released him. The Red Hulk recalls how Samson restrained him as he sought to alert the Hulk about what the intelligentsia was doing, so he reflects on how he assisted the Green Hulk in defeating the Red Hulk. Rick remembers being dragged back to the intelligentsia's lair, where Samson subjected him to hypnotic suggestion conditioning, telling him to kill Bruce Banner. A-Bomb, who had been forced to recall this, says that everything had been a hoax to find out what had happened to him before vanishing. The Red Hulk is incensed that he was used as a pawn once more. Rick goes back to Bruce Banner's lair and tells him everything. Rick dismisses Banner's remorse for sending A-Bomb to battle the Red Hulk by joking that he enjoys being A-Bomb. Bruce, though, makes the point that he may have been trained to enjoy it. The Red Hulk shows up as Rick prepares to leave, as he is aware that Rick would have returned to Banner. the Red Hulk resumes attacking A-Bomb out of rage over being betrayed. Bruce Banner dons the Redeemer armor and emerges from the cave to face the Red Hulk before Rick is able to vanquish him. Insisting that they don't want the armor harmed, A-Bomb pulls the Red Hulk back as he tries to retaliate. When Red Hulk questions why, A-Bomb replies that it's for him, as he still has commands from Samson implanted into his brain. This ends the conflict, and the three discuss this most recent development around a campfire. In order to avoid having to worry about it later, Bruce reveals that they intend to activate the instructions. Bruce surmises that if Bruce Banner's life's in danger, the A-Bomb may go off. The Red Hulk is next instructed to try smashing his skull. Rick strikes Bruce when Banner cries out for help because it sets off the hypnotic suggestion in his head. Bruce tries to reach Rick while being shielded by the Redeemer armor and convinces him to overcome his brainwashing. Rick is reminded of him by his resistance to the Hulk during the war on New York, his manipulation by Leader in the past, and his feelings following Captain Marvel's death from cancer. Banner also reminds A-Bomb of his past as an ally of Captain America and the Avengers as he starts tearing apart the armor. After being stripped of his armor, Bruce runs into the cave, closely followed by A-Bomb. Rick suddenly realizes that his remorse for the original incident that turned Bruce into the Hulk is what's motivating him. In a tight spot, Bruce admits to Rick that it wasn't his fault, and this gesture of repentance is all that A-Bomb needs to break free from his psychological restrictions. Bruce thanks A-Bomb for helping them vanquish their enemies today after Rick returns to normal. In the fourth issue, we start off at the Gamma base sometime in the past. The second stage of Intelligentsia's plan is currently in development. They start making preparations to invade the rest of the globe after they've conquered the US. At that point, the Red Hulk enters and starts mocking his buddies for treating the Earth like a chessboard. He says that they should be considering more contemporary battles such as the Vietnam War, rather than ancient conquests like those of Rome and Mongolia. He explains that using intellect alone won't enable them to rule the world, as every nation will use any and all means required to fight them, even strategies they could never have imagined. MODOK is then ridiculed by Red Hulk for having only clinical thinking, which leads to 3 mental explosions. After each explosion, the Red Hulk stands up and makes a point by saying that MODOK won't launch another one without putting his life in danger. Scientists from MODOK drag him away in a rage, but Red Hulk's presentation did enough to convince the leader to invite him to all future strategic planning sessions. The Red Hulk also warns him as he leaves the room that if they don't account for the Hulk in their strategies, they might as well give up. Later, Korg and Scar were killed by the AIM Marines when they attacked the capital. A-Bomb gets furious and breaks the necks of 2 of the rogue Hulks. Then, the leader shows up in a plane and blasts Rick with gamma radiation to transform him back into a human. Then he proceeds to produce a weapon and shoots Rick. After that, he moves on to celebrate the apparent death of the Hulk. But when he gets closer to the crater, however, the Hulk is still alive and rushes out of the hole to suffocate the leader. As this 401st simulation of their strategies to ensure triumph has come to a close, we see the leader enraged. The leader and the other Intelligentsia members understand that they should take heed of what the Red Hulk said and devise a strategy for taking the Hulk into account. MODOK promises the leader that they'll have time to reflect as they depart the simulation chamber. Meanwhile, Red Hulk grins slyly while watching from the shadows. Moving on to the present time, Thundra has Dr. Doom's time machine hidden in her desert home according to the Intelligentsia. The Mad Thinker sends a Gammaroid to the time machine after deciding to use it to predict the future. They take care not to damage the time machine because doing so may prevent Lyra from being born, which would prevent her from joining the Frightful Four and perhaps even derail their plans. The Gammaroid is instructed to enter the time coordinates into the time monitor so that they can take a glimpse into their immediate future. They observe a perfect future that the Intelligentsia has constructed. They discover that Betty and the leader are engaged. Rick Jones has become wheelchair-bound and is repeatedly apologizing for the death of Bruce Banner as it lingers in his conscience. The leader makes an effort to persuade Jones that the Hulk's death was not his fault. He even goes so far as to promise Betty that after they have taken control of the southern areas, he'll inquire into Rick's mental health. Igor, the super ape, updates them on the development of the world in the leader's image when they return to the leader's headquarters of operations. The Mad Thinker and his Gammaroid start the rebuilding process on the East Coast. The Red Ghost can be seen delivering supplies to the citizens of Russia with the help of his new apes. While there are some protests in northern China, they're crushed by Lyra and the Trapster. Then, Dr. Doom, who plays their court jester, and MODOK, now in human form, join them. They head outside to a terrace to view a monument honoring those who lost their lives during their conquering of the world after sending Doom away with Igor for pudding. Betty laments Rick's decision to kill the Hulk, but she admits it was necessary to preserve the planet. The intelligentsia decide that they've seen enough of the future and order the Gammaroid to return to base. The leader thinks he can manipulate any future variables to ensure their victory based on this glimpse into the future. On the other hand, the Red Hulk and Bruce are watching the Gammaroid leave from a location close to the time machine. Banner turns off the machine that just presented the Gammaroid with the fake future and claims that they've taken advantage of their enemy's worst flaw, their arrogance. The entire story arc is amazing. Both Hulks act like siblings throughout it. There is banter, but also solidarity between the two. It's a really good comic to read, especially if you want to know more about the Red Hulk. Things you need to know about Red Hulk. The Red Hulk is motivated by Ross's anger and a need for vengeance against the Hulk. He is Ross's ultimate weapon, and being the Red Hulk gives him the strength and power he needs to be able to fight the Hulk. However, he made sure to keep this dual identity a secret. He even faked his own death to achieve this, so that his actions as the Red Hulk couldn't be attributed to his human self. In fact, when the live-action TV show portrayal of the Hulk was being made, Kenneth Johnson, the executive producer, wanted Hulk to be red in color because that seems to represent anger a lot better than green. However, Hulk had mainly been green in the comics, which is why they never changed it. Red Hulk is also known for stealing powerful weapons of cosmic entities. He's even been able to steal and use Mjolnir to beat Thor. However, his ability to do so was a highly calculated move of strength and strategy. It wasn't out of his worthiness that he was able to use Mjolnir. He appears as the Red King in an alternate storyline called Secret Wars. The Secret Wars combined a bunch of Marvel universes and merged it all into a single planet called Battleworld. The Red King is quite similar to the Red Hulk in terms of looks, but that's where the resemblance ends, unfortunately. While we're talking about people taking on the personas of the Red Hulk, the latest Marvel comic appearance of the Red Hulk shows that General Ross is no longer the Red Hulk. He is now played by General Robert L. Maverick, the second person to take on this role. However, he didn't turn into the Red Hulk because of gamma radiation. Instead, he uses a Hulk plugin, which allows him to turn into the Red Hulk. The limitation with the plugin is that he can transform into the Red Hulk only for an hour each day. Insane versions of Red Hulk in various forms of media. The Red Hulk has made recurring appearances in various animated series as both Ross and the Red Hulk. He was a recurring antagonist in the 1982 and 1996 versions of The Incredible Hulk. He appears as Ross in the episode Hard Knocks in the animated series Fantastic Four: World's Greatest Heroes. He makes an appearance as Ross in Iron Man Armored Adventures as well. Ross appears in his human and Hulk form in the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. In a Season 2 episode, Ross was turned into the Red Hulk by the Winter Soldier. Red Hulk then went on a massive rampage in a helicarrier. Ultimately, he loses to the Hulk and leaves the battleground. The Red Hulk appears as a major character in the series Hulk and the Agents of Smash. He is shown as being irritable, pessimistic and haughty. He joined Smash in an effort to recover the prestige he had as a general, but had lost when he became the Hulk. Although they are no longer mortal adversaries, he and the Hulk nevertheless have a deep hatred for one another. Although he frequently attacks any scenario head-on, he is revealed to be a competent strategist and skilled with most weapons. He's demonstrated that when he's angry he becomes heated. He made several appearances in Avengers Assemble as well. When it comes to the films, Ross hasn't made an appearance as the Red Hulk yet. However, we do see Ross in movies like Hulk, The Incredible Hulk, Captain America Civil War, and Avengers Infinity War. Well, that's Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross and the Red Hulk. He's a really determined man. He loves deeply, as you can see through his relationship with Betty. Although he's a little misguided in his expression of love, you can tell that he loves her and cares about her immensely. As he is someone who loves so deeply, he also hates people just as intensely, if not more. He's highly motivated by his hate for the Hulk and Bruce Banner, which pretty much becomes his reason for existence after a point. He's an iconic character who is basically a hater at his core. Honestly, the reason I like Ross and Red Hulk so much is because of this fact. What do you think about his character? Let us know in the comments below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.
General Ross!
Get out!